Welcome back. I'm Amanda with the Happy Homestead, and we are within this video completing the second week of the Every Bit Counts challenge. And so if you saw the last video, which I actually just finished filming, but it's been a few days for you, I am kicking off day 4. So I hadn't done anything yet for day 4. Today is Thursday, August 11th, and I've got something fun today for today's preservation project. I have a large shopping bag here. Okay, do you know what this is? Most of them are off the clusters, but like here is a small cluster. Here is a larger one. So I've got a few larger ones in here. These are elderberries. I'm hoping these don't fall off all over my floor, but you can see these are elderberries. So we have 2 elderberry. They're like a shrub or a tree. It really depends on how you want them to grow, but they can get really large. And they have been growing like crazy. So the trees or the shrubs, whatever, again, you want to call it, they're about 15, maybe 18 feet tall and probably the same wide. We're talking huge. Now they are the end of they're at our homestead garden, and they're like at the end of the pasture or the field, kind of bordering into the woods. So I don't really care how big they get at the moment. But the birds love them, the squirrels love them, and I just hadn't really ventured into protecting them, right? There's only so much I can harvest at one point in one season, and I am more than happy to share with animals and bugs when I so feel inclined. I had felt inclined. But when I had gone out to the homestead garden the last 2 times, it's very much near my actual garden, and I just looked over at them and I was like, oh my goodness. And maybe you've seen that video, so click above and you can actually see that video where I had that reaction. And so I started harvesting them because the shrub is so tall. The clumps of berries just started falling over, and they were very close to the ground. And that's probably why the birds hadn't really found them or gotten to them. So this is my largest elderberry harvest of our own elderberries ever. And it is pretty exciting. When you put the effort into something years ago, right? And you're starting to reap the benefits, it's a good feeling. So these are some dried elderberries from elderberries I had harvested over the last couple of years. So not as many, right? But that's what we're gonna do. I'm going to get the berries off the stems and dehydrate them. And that is how you preserve them to make elderberry syrup later on. Now, I immediately froze these. So as soon as I had gotten, I put them in the bag when I was out at the homestead. And as soon as I'd gotten home, I just threw the whole bag in the freezer. And this is why, because the berries come off so easily. Now, even as I'm standing out here talking with this in room temperature, they're gonna start to soften up. And so I want to work as quickly as possible. The berries, they're already, and you can see there are a ton of berries at the bottom that are already off the stems. So I am gonna get them immediately onto my dehydrator trays and then start working on the others. But when you put them in the freezer, you can even like shake them. They come off the stems, and you're able to work with them so much easier. I wouldn't even try to work with them in their natural unfrozen state because first of all, they'll stain all over the place. And they'll actually start to crush. Right now they're kind of like little beads, right? So you can kind of work with them in your hands. But if they weren't frozen, I'd be crushing these in between my fingers and really damaging what I need, what I want. And this is just a little trick I've learned from doing this over the last year or 2, because they roll all over the place. So I just put some chopsticks down as guides to help keep them within the center. and especially not roll off while I'm transporting the entire tray over to the dehydrator. Now you'll see some stems in here, and that is just par for the course when it comes to working with elderberries. I will filter as many of those out after these are dried. You may also find that you have to work in batches, right? And what I mean by that is batches of your time, because these, again, are going to start to thaw very quickly. I'm just trying to pull off as many berries as I can and get them immediately in the dehydrator. But if I am working with these for too long, and too long meaning maybe more than 10 minutes, then you're gonna start noticing, your hands are getting stained, which means they're starting to thaw pretty quickly. And again, you don't want that just because it's so much easier to damage the berry that way. And they're not as easy to get off the stem when they're thawed. They're just so much easier frozen. Good afternoon. It is 5 o'clock on a Friday. What? Thank goodness. And I am gonna make some salsa verde. So I just turned my oven on to 425. I am actually fermenting my salsa verde. I already have some that I canned, which was a ball recipe. But this recipe I'm taking from the Fermented Vegetables book. It is on page 240 under tomatillos. And it's basically a fermented version of tomatillo salsa. And I turned my oven on because I am going to roast my tomatillos, my peppers, my garlic, and my onions in just a 8x11 casserole dish, just until everything gets really charred and kind of some color. Maybe 10-15 minutes. I don't actually know. I'm just going to kind of work it around and check it every 10 minutes or so and flip things. You just want to get that really good roasted color. I'm going to let it cool. I'm going to throw it into the food processor. I'm going to add some salt, and I am going to put an airlock lid on, and I'm going to ferment it for a few days, and it's going to be delicious. Number one, if you've never had tomatillo salsa, or salsa verde as it's called, you got to try it. It is so good. Number two, if you have never had fermented salsa, you have got to do that this year. Make that your goal. It is so good. It's just got that different probiotic fermented tang to it, but it is delicious. I think I've got 2 quarts in our refrigerator in the garage of just regular fermented salsa. This is the first time I'm fermenting salsa verde. I've got 2 pounds of tomatillos from the garden that I harvested, and it's not necessarily enough to go ahead and can up salsa verde. So that's why we're gonna ferment it today. So I put my tomatillos in here. You take the husk off, right? I actually put some green tomatoes in here as well, just to make up the poundage to get an equal 2 pounds. Now guys, if you're not growing tomatillos, you can easily use green tomatoes. Sometimes that works too, but if you can grow or find tomatillos, I recommend trying it. I've got some peppers from the garden that I harvested just this morning, so I'm going to throw them in. Got garlic from the garden. Now you don't have to chop everything up really fine, and in fact you'll see that I didn't really chop the tomatillos. I just might have cut off some ends that were eaten by bugs, but because this is all just going to get roasted and then go in the food processor, it is the easiest recipe. Did
you take a toy yet?
I did. I took 2. So our tomatillos and onions and garlic and peppers are in the oven. While that's going, I'm gonna start on something totally new, but I need to do it, need to use this up. So a little bit overachieving today on the Every Bit Counts challenge, but I have, these were in the freezer and I took them out, cream, and you can see the cream line right here and right here. So I'm actually gonna use both of the cream and the milk in here, as well as skim off the cream right there from our raw milk that we get. And you would think I'm gonna make butter, but I'm not. I'm going to make vanilla ice cream because, let's face it, this is just a really great way to preserve the milk and the cream in the most decadent and delicious way. And it's so easy, at least the way I do it. This may not be like the real way, but it's good. So I'm literally throwing everything in my blender. Let's start with these. The spider ate the fly?
Yeah.
Oh, good. You know what that's called?
It's a bad spider, Mom. It's orangish black.
Okay. It's called nature. Now I'm going to add my sweetener. I've used honey with some success, but today I'm going to use maple sugar. I get this from Azure Standard. It's really good. It adds just a little bit of maple flavor. And what I love about doing this is I get to control how much sugar is in here. Okay, so that's just a little over 2/3 cup. I'm gonna add a little vanilla extract. Sometimes I add a vanilla bean as well, like open up the pod and put the vanilla seeds in there. And then I just add a tiny bit of salt. And now we're gonna blend. You don't want to blend it so much that it makes whipped cream, but enough to really help get that sugar in there. I don't heat it up like most recipes would probably tell you. Oh, that's good. All right, I'm gonna go get my ice cream maker. Okay, this is not a fancy machine. This is the Cuisinart frozen yogurt ice cream sorbet maker. And let me tell you, I've had this thing for probably 15, if not longer, years. It is fantastic. And I think I bought it for 50 bucks back at that point. So it has certainly gotten its use. Try to get as much in here as I can. The only downside of this machine, and any of you that have one will know this, is that it's super loud. I think that's as much as we're gonna get. Okay, I just turned the oven off. Everything is almost charred. I'm just gonna eat this. But it has to cool before I start mixing and fermenting, right? Fermentation does not do well with hot because it just would kill all the good bacteria. So I'm gonna let that just cool in the oven, and then in a couple of hours when I get home, we'll chop it up and ferment it. This is why I'm eating ice cream. You hear that? I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of salt in. And that's it, 2 beautiful pints of salsa verde. As you may have noticed, this is not really in a salt brine, right? Like when I do my fermented pickles or you do a sauerkraut, it's not in this brine. But because I added basically a tablespoon of salt per pint, because I did 2 tablespoons, it's a little salty, but not overly bearing. That is enough to help get that fermentation process going. So while I don't need to wait to weigh anything down, I will, over a couple of days, start to see some of the gas bubbles come up. I will probably start to see some water rise. It may not get cloudy like it did with the fermented peppers, but it will be fermenting. And I'm expecting it to go anywhere between 3 to 6 days. This is still a little warm. It's not hot, but it's definitely warm to the touch. So I'm just gonna leave these on the counter and I'll update you as the fermentation process goes. So we got this done, we got the ice cream done, and that's it for day 11. So that concludes my activities for tonight, the 12th. But I wanted to show you for tomorrow, Saturday, August 13th, I am going to be making some sourdough bagels for the Every Bit Counts challenge. And so I fed my starter about 5 hours ago. Sometime tonight before I go to bed, I am going to put the sourdough bagel dough together and let it bulk ferment on the counter overnight, and then I'll bake my bagels in the morning. So I just wanted to show you that. I'll link the recipe down below for the bagel recipe I use, but I'm just gonna get that dough together tonight and then I'll cook tomorrow. So I'm signing off for tonight, but I will see you tomorrow. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna roll it into a log, and then once it's around that long, you're gonna make a bagel. That's it. No, you don't want to stretch it, you just roll it.
When I stretch with Play-Doh, it gets bigger.
I know, but this is sourdough, and we don't want to damage.
Hey, why are you chewing the napkin, Marley? Marley, napkins are not eating stuff.
I know.
That's what we know. Come on.
We'll eat the bagels when it's time. Good morning. It is Saturday, August 13th. It is 8 o'clock in the morning. I got up about an hour ago and came down and started on the bagel. So you saw me take that dough, which basically bulk fermented overnight. I weighed it and then divided that by 8. So I knew approximately how much each bagel dough piece had to weigh. And then we just roll it out and shape it. I find that it makes a much prettier bagel and it's easier than trying to do the shape and poking a hole through. That's just what we found. So they have been rising for about the last 30 minutes just on the counter here with a towel on top. I've got some water boiling with a tablespoon of sugar on the stove. And I've got the oven heated up to 425 degrees. So let's get our bagels going. Just going to gently scoop them out back onto the parchment paper, because then they are going to go in the oven once the other batch is done. Okay, these are all boiled, and they're gonna go in the oven for about 25 minutes. That's it. It is so easy to make bagels. These are going to cool, and I'll probably save 2 or 3, maybe 4, just for the next couple of days of eating. But the rest of them are gonna go right in the freezer. I will pre-slice, I'm gonna let them cool. I will pre-slice and then put them in the freezer. And so we have them for easy, quick breakfast this winter. Good evening. It is 6:40 on Sunday, August 14th. It is the last day of the second week for the Every Bit Counts challenge, and so it's the last thing I need to do to close out the second week. We've had a very busy weekend, and so I needed things that were kind of quick but useful, right? And so tonight I'm doing something that you may have seen me do previously, but it works, my kids enjoy it, and that is kefir popsicles. So I've got some kefir here that is well over fermented, but will be perfect. And if you're unfamiliar with kefir, it is a fermented milk. You use kefir grains. They look like little, bigger than grains of rice, but actual grains, and they ferment the milk, and it almost tastes like a yogurt. It's kind of got that little tang, that probiotic tang, but it's perfect to make popsicles with, and that's what I'm going to do for my children tonight. So we are going to use some blueberries that we harvested from our backyard, and I got a lemon. I'm going to use maple sugar. This is what I used in my ice cream the other night, and I'm obsessed with it. So it's just going to be some blueberry lemon popsicles.
So I need to rehang it, that's what you're saying.
Oh, those are strawberries.
Okay. Cole, where's your baseball bag? Okay, give me that. Let's put your baseball stuff in here. Okay.
Hi.
Okay, so then you put this in your freezer. You just need to make sure you have room somewhere where it is able to stand up until everything is fully frozen. And that closes it down for week 2. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you can see what we do on week 3. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.